Hello everybody, my name is Andrew and welcome to a special Zero Camp video about the January 2025 rules update for Warmachine. This is our 7th part video in the series, and this is about the Orgoth Sea Raiders. Alright, so now we're going to talk about the Sea Raiders. So there's a change to the Windstorm spell for the Sea Raiders, kind of the first thing we want to talk about here. It falls into line with other things we've seen where the changes to the range penalties for shooting at models harder to stack or they're less egregious. Windstorm no longer impacts all models in control range. It's only models within 8 inches of casters where you get the -3 range if you target those models. That being said, it again falls in line with everything we've seen so far, but this is a pretty significant change to a spell in a faction that has otherwise had a pretty easy time just stacking some range debuffs and getting across the table. So next we'll talk about the Garlghast. The Garlghast goes from speed 5 to speed 6, which is awesome. And importantly, this bad boy gets repairable. So no longer can you not repair or heal effectively your Garlghast easily. And now it's much easier to do. The Volkar Fortseer really likes this quite a bit. Only Grottan Champion goes from a speed 6 to a speed 5 and loses the Thresher attack on their Spellblade melee weapon. So this changes the Grottan Champion quite a bit. They no longer have the threat range that they used to. They no longer just pick up whole swaths of dudes like they used to. On an individual basis, they're still going to kill things, but just less offensive output. We also see a change to the Grottan Keeper, where they go from speed 6 to speed 5. So this also impacts its out of activation move, because now it doesn't walk 6 inches and hits something, it only walks 5. And given the changes to Windstorm, that means you may be able to be outside of its just silly threat range a little bit more often. Alexis the Warlord. Oh, this is a fun guy. However, this poor fun guy takes a little bit of a hit, to be frankly honest. Goes from arm 16 to arm 15, loses sidestep and soul powered, where he could buy attacks with souls, but gains the strength and death rule, which lets him boost attack or damage rolls by spending souls. Realistically, what this means for Alexis is he's a little less scary. He hits harder, though, so it's less often, but more quality when he does attack. So this is a big change for Hurrúsk. We're looking at his feat right now. His feat no longer includes the portion about tough rolls for friendly faction models. It's just a straight +3 armor. This means that tough rolls aren't made on 4, 5, and 6 anymore. This makes things potentially a lot more workable. Hurrúsk already has proved that he can walk up brick and brick hard on tabletops. For those that were not prepared for it, it was a tough nut to crack and could very much prove to be impossible. So this change may dial it back just enough so that way it's not as horrifying for new players to play into. It does mean quite a bit of changes for those experienced players, though, that have played him and are looking to play him on the competitive scene, so we'll see how that all pans out for him. This is some interesting change. So Kishtar loses the open fire signature spell, where a cohort model gets to make a range attack, and gains Surefoot instead, which gives +2 def and no knockdown to a friendly faction model or unit, which is some nice defensive tech. I'm glad it's here and not on Hurrúsk, but it doesn't match her flavor as much. That being said, her feat also has a change where it now works with all friendly faction models in her control, not just her battle group. So it means that Kishtar is now less a battle group caster and more an everyone caster, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it'll be interesting to see because Kishtar's had a lot of identity change since Mark IV. Little changes here and there just to kind of fine-tune her, but every fine-tuning is a lot different as far as what role she fills and the way she plays within the army. Moloch. Oh, so Moloch has gotten to be a lot of fun. Moloch goes from cost 17 down to 16, and then the big change here actually is not Soul Taker. Soul Taker does move from the head to the body, which means you can't lose Soul Taker, which is nice, but the possession rule on the right arm no longer needs a soul to trigger. That means Moloch just gets to do possession. That's horrifying. No longer were you having to use Grave Robber, which doesn't exist, on him to get possession to work. You're just firing it off always. Possession is a fantastic rule. As a Mark III Quicks player, when I would get a Machine Wraith in and just take over a Jack, it is scary what Moloch can now do with possession. I am super stoked to see this model on table, especially since he costs less now too. So the Siege Tarrasque, two big changes here. It loses the Brutality special rule where it gets to spend rage tokens to buy extra melee attacks. So it's no longer just has a ridiculous melee output. It still has a really good one, don't get me wrong. But it's no longer just buying extra attacks every time it picks up a rage token. But it also sees a change to the rage field rule, similar to Monstrosities in the core rules, where it may gain a rage token when that effect procs. It doesn't have to. Very again, corner case, especially with the Siege Tarrasque where it's just rage tokens, it's not focus, but it's a nice quality of life change and it kind of lines it up with other similar effects. So we're going to briefly talk about the Sky Bomber and the Sky Raider inside of Orgoth, just because for the Sea Raiders, the Sea Raider specific version has changes to Strafing Run, just like Vast does inside of Storm Legion, where no longer do you gain the additional die to drop on the attack roll, it's only on the damage roll with Strafing Run. Still super good, still super strong, but it's a nice clarification. It makes them a little less overtuned, and we haven't seen a lot of them on the table with Sea Raiders lately. They may be making a comeback. We'll see. Strike Reavers. These guys went from having, quite frankly, not like the worst time ever in Sea Raiders, but they picked up a lot of stuff. These guys get kind of nuts. They went from cost 7 to cost 8, which sounds crazy until we start talking about the other changes. Like how they go from Rat 5 to Rat 6, which is nice. They're ranged weapon base, so an extra point of Rat really helps out a lot. They also just gain the assault advantage, which now means that when they charge, they get a shot in melee, and it just automatically gets pistol. But to make this even more fun, we've given them an additional melee weapon, a bayonet on their gun, which is range 1, POW 10, and has brutal charge. So it's POW 12 on the charge. So suddenly, these guys have 3 attacks on the charge. They have the shield, they have the shot, and then they have the bayonet, all for 8 points. I think that's pretty solid. They're a lot of fun. And, you can attach -1 armor to them too, because why not? The Ulcor Barrages, which are a pretty solid medium-based ranged unit, go from cost 9 to cost 8. I'll be 100% honest, I did not see this one coming. They had a job that they were doing pretty well inside a faction already, and now they're going to do it for cheaper. I don't think this is particularly bad. I don't think that this is like that now we're going to see them everywhere. It's just a nice quality of life change. But now also they and the Strike Reavers are the same cost, so we're going to see how that works out. The Volkar Forge Master. So this bad boy gets 2 changes that are really just clarifications that make this really nice. Defensive measures now works on cohort models, not just warjacks. Also, same with exorcism. Realistically, what this means is that the Volkar Forge Master's defensive measures and exorcism work on the Garlgast, which is the only monstrosity in faction that does not have spell ward. So you can now shield guard a Garlgast, you can exorcism a Garlgast, which is actually super good because that is a big target for debuffs. If there are other monstrosities that show up in faction that the Volkar Forge Master can interact with, they may be able to take more advantage of this later. It's just a nice clarification and quality of life change, again, with the exception of the fact they can target the Garlgast. And that's all the different updates for the Sea Raiders. So for them, it's nice to see that the Garlgast gets some fun interactions with the Volkar. Realistically, not a lot of big changes here. Again, the Strike Reavers are a real big change. Kind of out of left field, they are suddenly a lot of attack output. Oh my gosh, it's scary. Holy cow. So I think we're going to see them a lot more on the table. But otherwise, it's mostly just Kishtar's role changing slightly to who she does interact with and how she interacts with them. And then Hrusk's feat. Hrusk's feat is going to be, I think, the single biggest change we see out of this, where kind of like what we've seen with other Prime armies, Hrusk is not going to be one of the 2 models in every single pair anymore because he's just a brick house that bricks all the houses in his army. But I don't think he lost a lot there. Just the tough claws. The +3 armor is still a lot, especially in a faction with tyrants with shields. Oh boy. So I think this is some nice clarifications. I don't think this goes too hard in any one direction again, except Strike Reavers. Oh my gosh. We're going to see so many Strike Reavers on the table. Or are we? I guess we'll find out. But thank you very much for watching. And this concludes Part 7 of the January 2025 War Machine Rules Update videos for the Sea Raiders. We still have a few more to go. So if you're still watching, thank you very much. We hope you've enjoyed all these videos so far. And if this is the first one you've watched, well, we hope you've enjoyed it too. Please feel free to like, subscribe, share, follow, all that other good jazz. We'd love to spread the good word of War Machine around, so let your friends know. But also, we are on a trek down to try to get 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. At that point, YouTube pays us to make content, which is awesome. And we'd love to have that so we can provide even more stuff. So thank you all for watching. Hopefully you catch the next videos. We've got 2 more. Or we catch you on our next stream. Thank you, and we'll see you then.